Big Ben talks Aaron Rodgers. And is Omar overrated? Big Deek News. So on Big Ben's most recent podcast, he shared his opinion on Aaron Rodgers potentially joining the Steelers. Aaron Rodgers, a guy that was one of Big Ben's peers, a fellow all-time great at the quarterback position. So yeah, I am kind of curious as to like Big Ben's thoughts on this whole situation. Here's what he had to say.
Listen, if Aaron comes in here, the team just gets this much better. I mean, you get a Hall of Famer in here, it's this much better. I mean, It's the offense all of a sudden becomes a different team, you know? And that's not a slight towards anyone here. That's an Aaron Rodgers. Yeah. I mean, that's a different animal. You can say what you want. Yeah, he can't move quite like he used to, this and the other. You know what still works? His arm and his brain.
Yeah.
And so I think that's something that instantly makes this team offensively something to think about when you've got the weapons and that dude.
I think that's right. It's just a great in 7, recognizing another great in Rodgers and knowing that you could still be a great going into your 40s at the quarterback position, despite what the haters and people that don't know ball and what the doubters will say otherwise. Because we saw Rodgers still be able to make every throw needed to and put up top 10 numbers in both passing yards and touchdowns last year. Like Ben said, you could say Rodgers can't necessarily move like he used to, but you know what still works? His arm and his brain. And Ben knows that firsthand as he was aging into his last few seasons. He obviously couldn't move like he used to, like in his 20s and his early 30s, but he still put in work in those final 2 seasons. Went 21-10 as a starter. In 2020, which was his second to last season, had a 3-to-1 touchdown to interception ratio, 33 touchdowns, 10 picks, won the division. And then in his last season in 2021, 22 touchdowns, 10 picks, a 2-to-1 touchdown to interception ratio. But that season, he had 0 surroundings on offense and like the worst rush defense in the league, and Canada as his offensive coordinator. But he also still led the league in game-winning drives, carried that team to the playoffs. So 7 knew he could still get it done as he was aging and wanted to play another season going into what would have been his age 40 season. But the organization, the fake fans, and the media ran him out of town. Like, clearly the dude could still get him done. It's just give him some help. The dude's 40. He can't move like he used to. Maybe give him an offensive line and a couple good weapons on offense and a decent defense that isn't getting gashed game in and game out. Maybe we could do better than just making the playoffs. Maybe. If you give an all-time great some better surroundings. Like, that was my thought process. But everyone else wanted to blame 7 for that 2021 team's shortcomings. Hey, so if anything, I'm 7. I'm looking at this Rodgers situation and saying, what the hell, bro? Why are you guys like going out of your way and courting Rodgers like that at age? Rodgers is 41 right now, coming off of a 5-12 season. Yet Ben took the Steelers to the playoffs in his final season with, again, the worst rush defense in the league and Kendrick Green as his center and Matt Canada as his coordinator. Yet you wanted 7 out. And you got a way better setup, both offensively and defensively, for Rodgers coming in here. And even going back to last offseason for Russ compared to what Ben had in those last couple seasons. So it's like, damn. As if the sabotage didn't need any more proof. But here you have it. What a damn shame. Wasn't 7's fault. As you could see clearly as these last few years have played out at the quarterback position. I tried telling you guys, but nobody wanted to listen. Anyway, back to his Rodgers assessment. I think he's spot on. Bring in Rodgers, give him quality surroundings, and watch what a healthy all-time great can do even into his 40s. We saw it with Brady and the Buccaneers, and we saw it, with Ben in his last couple seasons. That's even with the team and his surroundings dwindling, he was still able to make things happen. But now let's transition to our final topic for today, and it actually kind of ties into this Big Ben Rodgers stuff that we just talked about. I'll tie it in at the end of the segment. But Colin Cowherd questions whether or not Omar is the right man for the Steelers GM job. Says, you know how some things look the part, but then you get there and they're not the part? it could be a hotel reservation or a golf course. Certain things, they sell themselves very well. And then you get there, you got a GM in Pittsburgh right now. I'm not sure Omar Khan is the guy. They didn't do an outside search. He's been there forever. Bro, this is just an asinine take by Cowherd. And I'm a Cowherd guy. I watch his show a lot. I appreciate the work he puts in. But Omar Khan has been a shining light for this franchise these last few seasons, in my opinion. He's been able to make the deals, get the players in here to get us excited. Now, the execution on the field and, the coaching hasn't been, 100% there. But I don't think is that really on Khan? Because, one, you think Khan is signing any of these players without Tomlin's approval? Of course not. And, again, Khan isn't coaching, or he's not a player on the field. His job is to build out the roster as best as possible year in, year out. And I think he's doing a pretty damn good job of that. For the most part, is there a hiccup or two here or there? Yeah, but I think that's just going to happen. It's the name of the game, being a GM. And with the frequency and the amount of moves that Khan has been making, yeah, I think that's just going to happen organically. That's just going to be a natural occurrence. Maybe one deal or one little thing doesn't go as we plan. The Kevin Dotson trade, that's one of them. But I wouldn't even put that really on Khan, because that's more Tomlin playing Dotson out of position and then signing a guy to replace Dotson. Then Dotson becomes expendable. He would have been on the bench for his final season in a Steeler uniform. So Khan at least traded Dotson to get a draft pick and get some value, as opposed to just having Dotson chill on the bench for a full season and lose him in free agency for nothing. And then I'd say the other maybe hiccup or thing you could scratch your head about was the fact we didn't have a solid wide receiver 2 last season. But it didn't seem to affect us too much for the majority, as we were sitting at 10-3. But I think you could see as time went on, Pickens got banged up, that we needed that more solidified. Now, the Mike Williams trade was an attempt at that, which I was good with. I think that trade was fine. It didn't work out exactly the way we would have liked, but just bringing him in at least for the depth and then the upside of being a nice guy across from Pickens. Now, I don't know if we completely utilized Mike Williams the best either. That's the other thing. There was games where you're only seeing him out there for 5 or 10 snaps, and you're like, what are we doing? Shouldn't we have Mike Williams and Pickens out there on the outside? It would open things way more up in the middle, help us out in the run game. And when we did that in some of the games, it felt like we actually started to hit a groove with our offense. But the Mike Williams trade, I understand why we did it. I think it was a fine move, giving up a 5th-round pick for him. The talent's there, the fact that he's had a couple, maybe even 3,000-yard seasons throughout his career. It was a risk worth taking, no doubt. But just the fact that we traded Deontay and had no real plan to replace him, I think that could be a knock. We tried for Ayuk, but I think that was a blessing in disguise that trade didn't happen. So the lack of wide receiver depth in 2024 could be a little bit of a knock for Omar, but I think the rest of his moves, because that's really the only one. The Kevin Dotson trade, again, I don't even think that's on Khan. That's more on Tomlin and how Dotson was in the Steelers system and how we underutilized him or misutilized him. And then eventually he became expendable, and Khan had to make a move because we had too many guards at the time, and Dotson was just going to be chilling on the bench in his final season. So you might as well get a draft pick for him. Wide receiver 2 last year, wide receiver depth, I think that's a knock. But look at every other move Khan has made. These back-to-back drafts have been A to A+ in terms of the value and where we've been drafting these players. You got the Claypool trade, you got the DK Metcalf trade, the Patrick Queen signing, the Fields trade. The Kenny trade turns into us getting an extra pick in the 3rd round to draft Peyton Wilson. Now, Russell Wilson we got on the vet minimum contract. Now, that I don't know if that's really a con artist type of move. That's just Russell Wilson wanting to play here, and whatever contract he would have signed, that money would have went off what the Broncos owed Russ. So he was always going to sign for a vet minimum contract, whatever team he went to. But the fact that we don't have any bad or crippling, devastating contracts, and the team's able to maintain flexibility as we're trying to find our quarterback answer. Khan's operating as a top 5 GM. He's operating like an elite GM in this league. So I don't know exactly where these Cowherd comments are coming from. I know he's been consistently down on the Steelers in general over the last several seasons. So I guess that means Khan catches a stray with this take and gets lumped into this. But the weird thing is, if you actually listen to Cowherd like I do, he consistently talks up how good the Steelers roster is, which would be credit to Omar Khan. Again, the execution and the coaching and how it all plays out, that's been the disappointing part. But the roster being there over the last several seasons, I don't think we really have an issue there. So that's, yeah, if anything, that shows that Khan's doing a pretty good job. But how this ties to Big Ben, going back to what I said at the beginning of this, how this ties to Big Ben is just imagine if he had Omar Khan in his last few seasons, and maybe even Weidel as the assistant GM too, instead of Colbert. Do we have Creed Humphrey? Do we have a better defense? Do we actually have a line? Like, do we go out of our way to make a trade or two for a DK Metcalf type of receiver? It's just, yeah, who knows, man? Who knows? I mean, just the fact, too, if we would have had Ben as opposed to Kenny and Mitch and Mason the last couple seasons, or the 2022 and 2023 season, I think that's evidence right there that, man, we would have done better. We would have at least had, 11, 12, 13 wins, I think. If we went 10-7 and 9-8 with the quarterback position the way it was in those two seasons, and how those rosters were better than what Ben had in his last season or two, I just think it's obvious we would have been 2 or 3 wins better. And I said that at the time. But, yeah, that's it for today's show. Let me know your thoughts on Seven's comments regarding Aaron Rodgers and Cowherd's comments on Omar Khan. I agree with Ben's comments on Rodgers. Very much disagree with Cowherd's comments on Omar Khan. I think Omar Khan is one of the best GMs in the NFL. But that's it. Hope you guys enjoyed. Stay chilling. Peace.